All right. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to something new. I don't really have a name for this series yet, but specifically, if you watch my last video where I talked about how to connect with people while doing this whole social distancing thing, that inspired this. Obviously, the meat of this channel is RPG and specifically D&D related. Most of my videos are about that. And I did mention Roll 20 on in that video. Um, uh, that was mostly for video games because that's what I used to relax a lot of the times. It's a way to distract myself from my anxiety and panic attacks and the things like that. But I got to thinking, um, a lot of people that have never played D and D, even with the kind of intro of a video I did when I talked about Roll 20 and how to find games, that's still not might not be the best way to get into it if you're brand new, because you don't really know what to look for. To talking to strangers can be a little intimidating. So this is a series that I could come up with a cool name for. I may not. But it's going to be specifically me highlighting some adventures that are easy to run. These are all pre-written adventures. So specifically, they're Adventure League adventures, but they're pre-written. They have everything you need, including monster stat blocks and the things like that, right in uh, uh, right in the packet, so you literally don't need anything else to run it other than some friends to play. And I thought that this might be a nice thing, again, with Roll 20 or Fantasy Grounds or tabletops. This is a simulator. Like, there's a lot of different ways you can run a game on the line. You can even do it over Skype or Google Hangouts, um, and ignore the virtual tabletop completely and just have everyone roll their own dice and stuff. Like, it's really easy to run a game. It just takes people to do it. So I'm hoping, by talking about a few of these adventures that either I myself have personally run, or I've seen them run at conventions that I have organized before, or just ran games at. These are just really great adventures that really you can just pick up, and even if you've never did a DM before, you can run these adventures. Um, so the first adventures I wanted to talk about, and normally these videos will be me highlighting maybe one or two adventures, but for this one, I'm actually going to highlight a grand total of five, because they're all basically kind of this is the same thing with different storylines. Um, and those are what are called the introductory adventures for each Adventures League season. The D&D Adventures League is broken up into seasons. They're currently on their ninth season, and each season corresponds with a product that Wizards of the Coast has released. So season one was called Tyranny of Dragons. It was linked with Horde of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat, the first two adventure books that Wizards of the Coast published. Season 2 was Elemental Evil, and it was linked to Princes of the Apocalypse. So you see how this goes. Basically, every major book release they've had, they have a season that goes along with it. The Adventures League adventures are somewhat self-contained adventures, so you can run them as one-shots. They will have a little description in the beginning, generally like half a page, that will explain kind of this is stuff going on that you and the players would need to know to understand what you're doing, and they give you hooks that will give you ways to get the party to actually want to do this. The characters themselves to actually want to do this, which was important because a lot of these games were run at game stores or at conventions. And you would literally have random people with random characters sitting down at a table to play together. So you didn't really have a lot of time to kind of build a group, kind of cohesive message or anything like that. So, yes. So, the intro adventures are all the same for these 5 seasons. They're always the first adventure of the season. They are always designed for first level characters, so they're great for people that have never played before, people that haven't played in a long time, people that have played different editions of the D&D and want to try 5th edition, or people that just want to try a new class right from the beginning. Because it's all level 1 content, some of it you can use level 2 characters, but for the most part, it's designed for level 1 characters. But because it's designed for introductory characters, it's also designed for introductory DMs. They're very easy to run. They give you a lot of different experiences you can give your players, whether it's combat encounters or role-playing or exploring. They give you a really good mix without feeling overwhelmed. The way that it's set up is each one of these first adventures, which they will all be linked in the description, so you can actually buy them directly from the DM's Guild. They're generally, I think, like the $3 a piece, so super cheap. And there's a setup as 5 1 to 2 hour adventures, and you can run as many or as few as you want. I know when I ran conventions, and I organized for conventions, in general, we would do 4.5 hour blocks, and you could normally get through 3 of the adventures in a 4.5 hour block without too much difficulty, because that gave you extra time for new players to learn things, for the players themselves to explore and kind of go off the rails a little bit or get caught up in certain things. So for a regular 4-hour session, plan on running the 3 in general, and that'll give you plenty of time to just fool around and let the players kind of get a little lost in this story. The nice thing about it is at the end of the adventure, it will actually to tally up all the things you can do. Like it'll show you how much experience you can give. It'll show you what items they might have found, or how much gold they might have found in there. And all you have to do is go, yep, they found that. Nope, they didn't find that. And it's really simple, really easy, and really fun. to kind of give you a background of each of these adventures, I'll explain basically what the season itself was focused on. Each one has a different focus. They also happen in different places. So understanding just a little bit of the lore around the area does help as a dungeon master. So the first one, all of these adventures, excuse me, forgive me. All of these adventures have a code that's what's used by organizers and the things like that to know which adventure it is without having to memorize every single title and know which season they fit in. All of the first adventures are going to be either DDEX or DDAL, and I'll explain the difference in a little bit. Followed by the season number. So for the first season, it's 1, a dash, and then 1 because it's the first adventure in that season. So season 1, it was DDEX 1-1. Season 2 would be DDEX 2-1. Makes it really simple and easy to find that one specifically. So, Tyranny of Dragons was season 1, and the whole season revolved around this group called the Cult of the Dragon. Their overall goal was a little bit different depending on whether you're running the Adventures League content or you're running the book, but it all involved them being like having a super fixation on chromatic dragons. And the kind of god of the chromatic dragons, Tiamat. Chromatic dragons in the Dungeons and Dragons are always evil. Metallic dragons are always good. So if you have a red dragon, chromatic means color. A red dragon is an evil dragon. A copper dragon, copper being a metal, so metallic, would be a good dragon. In general, obviously, there's a nuance between dragons. I'm not going to get into this. But this one's specifically focused on these cultists and them having a large fixation on dragons. All of the Adventure League stuff, which at this point was called the D&D Expeditions, which is why the code is DDEX for Expeditions. All of it was centered on a town called Phlan. That's Phlan. Which is a town in the Moonsea region of Faerun. So this is for Forgotten Realms. And it's just shown up in some previous D&D video games and stuff. But it's not a super huge centerpiece for like the books or anything like that. So it's one of the reasons they chose that area. Phlan itself has had some weird stuff going on throughout its history, and this specific adventure is called the Defiance in Phlan, and it's basically there to kind of get you used to what's happening in Phlan. You get to deal with some cultists in a few of the adventures, and overall, it just kind of sets up everything else that will happen in that season. All of the adventures will normally either start in Phlan or somewhere very close to it. They do go to areas outside of Phlan, but all of that is explained in the adventures, and these specific adventures, again, they're only about an hour long. They generally run pretty quick, and they have everything in the adventures. So if there's any NPCs that are important. They will list the NPCs. They'll give you a little bit of background. They're super easy to run. So if dragons are your thing, start with DDEX 1-1. Season 2 was called Elemental Evil, and it was centered in a town called Mulmaster. Again, the first of the 3 seasons are all set in the Moonsea region, just in different cities. So they're all kind of interconnected, and stuff that happened in the previous season will bleed into the next season. So DDEX 2-1 is called City of Danger. Mulmaster is an interesting city in itself, and the Elemental Evils storyline revolves around these 4 different elemental cults. There is a cult of water, there's a cult of earth, there's a cult of wind, and there's a cult of fire. They're kind of fighting amongst themselves and trying to manipulate the masses in order for them to basically be able to summon the elemental leader of their cults from their elemental plane. Is their kind of big goal. And they do this in a bunch of different ways. Most of the Adventurers League stuff deals with kind of isolated incidents. If you actually play the adventure Princes of the Apocalypse, you deal with much more concentrated efforts that kind of lead to a pretty epic end fight. So you'll be dealing with elemental cultists. You'll deal with some elemental kind of monsters on a fairly regular basis, and you'll deal with Mulmaster itself. Now, again, Mulmaster is a unique city. One of the biggest things about Mulmaster is magic is forbidden to be used in Mulmaster unless you are registered and a part of a very specific group, I believe called the Cloaks. I'm going to look it up really quick to see if it actually tells me. Of course it doesn't. Yeah, I'll deal with that later. Anyway, if any players, and it explains this right in the beginning of the adventure, if any of the players are magic users and they use magic openly in Mulmaster, they can be arrested and forced to join the Cloaks. Or if they refuse to join the Cloaks, they have a really simple way to ensure that they don't cast any more spells in town. They cut your hands off. That's just one aspect of Mulmaster. The Cloaks themselves are basically a form of secret police. They can make people disappear. This city guard is corrupt. This city itself, the god that they revere the most currently is Bahal, who is the god of murder. And so the city itself is this very corrupt city. One of the things you deal with throughout the entire adventure is basically the politics of this city itself, where certain groups will try to use you and manipulate you to get what they want, while simultaneously dealing with the cults who are also going to manipulate you and try to convince you that they're the only altruistic group and everyone else is evil. It's really interesting. It's really fun. And the idea of being in a place where the deck is kind of stacked against you can be a really fun aspect of playing. So yes, this is City of Danger again for five first level of adventures that get you used to 1 hour of adventures, get you used to Mole Master, kind of introduce a few of the cults and what they've been doing. A few of my favorite adventures that I personally have run came from this season, including one where I didn't run it. I have run it, but I played it as well. And the adventure we played, you had to go into this place and just rescue someone that had been brainwashed by one of the cults. And we took such an interesting route through it, and there was so much kind of slapstick happening with the other players. It was one of the most fun things I'd ever done, mostly because it was literally a group of DMs that played the adventure. So we had all run this adventure before. We were all very familiar with the whole season, and yet we still just had a blast. We didn't have to metagame or anything. We just had fun. So that's so this is season 2, Elemental Evil. So this is season 3. Is one of my personal favorites. This is seasons because it was really interesting. It was called Rage of the Demons, and the plot line of this season itself was linked to the book Out of the Abyss. And what was happening was the demon lords were coming back to Faerun. And anytime that they kind of manifested in physical form, bad things happened. They would manipulate the minds of people around them. They would corrupt people. It was really interesting. And gave you a lot of really interesting adventures where not only did you do things above ground, but half of the adventures happened in the Underdark, which, if you're not familiar with that, in Faerun, there's actually this massive kind of underground continent, basically, called the Underdark. It's where the Dark Elves are from, and light doesn't reach down there. It's pitch black. The only light you get is from phosphorescent mushrooms and the things like that. And the society down there is very, very different from the one on the surface. And since the demons are coming from under the earth, they hit the Underdark first, and then to try to make their way out. It's really cool. The Adventure League stuff, which again, this was the last season, they called it Expeditions. So the adventure we're talking about is DDEX, the 3-1. It's called Harried in Hillsfar. And it's also, this is set around the city of Hillsfar. Again, Hillsfar is another city in the Moonsea region. It was actually the setting of a couple gold box games from like the 80s. And the interesting thing about Hillsfar, we mentioned Mole Master was really corrupt. And so you were kind of fighting against corruption in addition to these elemental cults. Hillsfar is just really screwed up. The city itself, up until just before the adventure started happening, the city itself was constantly under siege, and people were attacking it, and it just wasn't a fun place. They're now finally in a period of relative peace. But the city itself is mostly populated by humans who have a strong distrust of all the other races, to the point where in the actual city walls of Hillsfar, any non-human races, it is illegal for them to be within the city walls. Any non-human races in the city walls are slaves, and most of them fight in the arena in the center of the city, which is one of the big draws for entertainment in this city. That doesn't mean that non-human characters don't exist. They can live outside the walls and in the areas around Hillsfar. They're just not allowed to go into this city. A lot still to do. If they wear disguises and hide themselves, they can kind of go around. And there's actually kind of slums just outside this city wall where the non-humans live and try and eke out a living, because the city is still, even outside the walls, this city is still one of the safest places in the area. Now, combine the xenophobia and just the hate built into this city with the demons starting to creep up and manipulate people's minds, and you get some really crazy stuff. Without giving too much away for this season, there's one demon lord specifically that kind of is holding sway over that region of Faerun, and his kind of the thing that he does is have people kind of go to excesses. So gluttony, lust, the things like that are some of the things that are happening there, along with the demons coming out of the Underdark, the dark elves being forced to the surface. It's a really interesting season. Again, the first adventure is, again, those 5 modules, the 5 1-hour adventures, I mean. Again, it'll give you a brief description, and again, it'll get the players kind of used to playing in this region. And get used to, if they are, elves or halflings or something, get used to wearing a cloak when you're in this city, or making yourself look taller, hiding your pointed ears, or, if you are one of the shorter races, pretending you're a child because you can't get to tall enough. Or, the 2 halflings under one cloak pretending to be one person. However your players want to do it. It does add that little bit extra intrigue and subterfuge aspect. And again, can be a lot of fun. Season 4 was the first season not set in the Moonsea region, and actually not set in Faerun. It's called Curse of Strahd. It coincided with the Curse of Strahd book, and it's set in what's called a demi-plane, which basically its own little self-contained world. Though it's only one little small area of a world, and then anything outside of that small area just doesn't exist. But the area is called Barovia, and Strahd and the setting itself is called Ravenloft. It is your kind of Castlevania, Dracula style gothic horror setting. Strahd is the D&D version of Dracula. Barovia is a stand-in for Transylvania. You fight undead creatures and werewolves and just anything you could think of in a gothic horror setting. You will be dealing with that. The demi-plane itself is called, I believe it's called the demi-plane of Dread. There are people that live in Barovia that don't know that there are worlds that exist outside of it. They've always lived in Barovia, and they're kind of just permanently oppressed by this feeling of dread. And so a lot of the adventures are built on this idea of helping the townsfolk in the various different towns and trying to deal with that, while also dealing with the fact that quite literally the entire world you are currently existing in is trying to make you miserable. I am a huge Castlevania fan, so I loved every minute of playing them. And interesting that the thing about the Adventures League, the Adventures, is they were actually written to be played in order from 1 to 14. There's 14 adventures to total. So it was designed to take characters from level 1 all the way up to around level 10 in a kind of cohesive storyline that hadn't existed before. The other Adventure League adventures were kind of self-contained, but they referenced other adventures. These actually link between them. So if you enjoy the first one, and this is the first series that's changed to the Adventurers League, so it is now DDAL 4-1. It's called Suites of the Mists. And the basics of it are the way you get into Barovia and Ravenloft, which is the name of the castle that Strahd lives in, is these mists will just kind of appear one day, and as you walk into the mists, you actually leave Faerun or anywhere else, because Barovia can basically just appear anywhere. And you will walk into Barovia, and until you do certain things, you can't leave. The mist closes behind you, and if you try to walk out the way you came in, you'll wander around for a while, and then suddenly find yourself back where you started. So until you've finished this storyline, you're kind of trapped there. Now, the first adventure, the little 5 mini adventures, they don't actually trap you in Barovia. What they are is you kind of meet some Barovians that have escaped. You do some stuff for them. You will kind of go into Barovia a bit, but then by the end of each adventure, you find your way back out. And it's only at the very end, if your players want to continue, that you will actually get trapped in Barovia until you fulfill whatever it is you're supposed to fulfill. Again, this whole season is built around those kind of gothic tropes of dread and fear and just kind of unsettling. There's not a ton of jump scares in it. It is more of just this kind of oppressive nervousness that goes across all the adventures. And again, this is Dracula. This is Castlevania. If you're a fan of the Netflix series, a lot of these adventures are going to feel kind of similar. Though not quite as violent, because Strahd rules Barovia. He's not trying to kill everybody. But otherwise, tons of fun. The final one I'm going to talk about is season 5. It was called Storm King's the Thunder, and this was actually the first season that's actually set in the same place as the book that went along with it. The book itself was called Storm King's the Thunder, and it's set in the Sword Coast region of Faerun. If you're not familiar with that, Baldur's Gate, and then Neverwinter, and Waterdeep are all along the Sword Coast. In the different spots. Baldur's Gate, I believe, is at the southern part. Then Waterdeep and Neverwinter is at the top. Neverwinter was really popular. Driss did a lot of the things in R.A. Salvatore's books. He did things in Neverwinter and Icewind Dale, which is to the north. Also, the games in Neverwinter Nights and the MMO in Neverwinter are all set in Neverwinter and different time periods. Baldur's Gate had two really big games that were set there, but Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. Baldur's Gate the 3 is currently in development. And then Waterdeep is really well known because there's a massive dungeon underneath it called Under Mountain, which actually becomes this setting of one of the later seasons we're not going to go into. So Storm King's Thunder, easy for me to say, actually takes place in various places along the Sword Coast, and the idea behind it has got everything to do with giants. In Faerun and in D&D in general, there's a bunch of different types of giants. You have things like storm giants, fire giants. Trying to think of the other giants now. There's a bunch of different ones that I can't think of right now. Hold, please. Trying to see if I can actually get a list of the giants. Yeah, so you had storm giants, cloud giants, fire giants, frost giants, stone giants, mountain giants, hill giants, and then the various other things like Ettins, giant kin, and ogres. But they have the thing called the ordning, which basically says which giants are on top as far as a hierarchical structure. The storm giants are the kind of kings of the giants. They're the highest. Cloud giants are just below them. Then goes fire giants, frost giants, stone giants, mountain giants, hill giants, and then the semi-giants. What happens is Storm King's the Thunder is the ordning has basically been canceled and is being rewritten. So all the different giant clans are vying between each other so that they can get a better rank when the ordning is rewritten. Maybe making them more powerful, giving them more control over other giants, better riches, the things like that. So the whole season is kind of dealing with the fact that the giants are doing all this stuff and kind of infighting with them, and unfortunately, people are just kind of stuck in the crosshairs. You deal with a bunch of different kinds of giants. They're tons of fun. Again, the introductory adventure is again DDAL 5-01, and it's called Treasure of the Broken Horde. And again, it's for first level characters, and it's these 5 mini adventures that kind of get you introduced the idea that giants are not acting the way they normally do. They're going out of their designated territories. They're fighting amongst each other. They're also fighting the human settlements around, because if they can expand their territory, they might get a better a better rank in the new ordering. The other thing that's interesting about this season 5 is that they introduce rune magic, and it's not something your player characters can learn and cast runes or anything, but some of the magic items that you'll find in the later adventures, not in the first adventure. They don't do magic items in the first one. Will be runes that you can inscribe on normal weapons to turn them into magic weapons, which is just kind of a cool way to do stuff like that. Yeah. Anyway, those are the 5 starting adventures from the first 5 seasons. The reason I focus on those first 5 seasons is the rules for the seasons themselves don't really change that much, and they're the most like D&D games you're going to run on your own. Season 6 was this weird half season where they only had the 3 adventures, and they were all kind of weird. And starting with season 7, they changed how a lot of things were run. They started using these things called treasure checkpoints. It was really confusing. But if you're using these adventures to kind of introduce people to D&D, the first 5 seasons are the best to do it with, because they're going to be most like what's going to happen at just a regular table. If this really gets you interested in the Adventures League itself, like I said, they're currently on season 9, which is linked to the book Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. And Avernus itself is the first level of hell. And so all of the adventures, my understanding, I actually haven't run any of them. I haven't run games since season 6. But my understanding is you go to hell and have to deal with this stuff in there and figuring out what's going on and why hell is trying to launch itself into Baldur's Gate, which isn't the greatest city in the world, but it ain't bad. Yeah. If you've never played D&D and you want to give it a shot, because of this is a social distancing, literally pick up any of these first adventures. They are linked in the description. They're generally like the $3 or $4, so they're really cheap, and you have literally everything you need to run them. You don't need any of the books, though having a player's handbook is useful, or at least the D&D basic rules or the system reference to the document, both of which are for free. Just so you have access to some of the spells and the things like that you might have to deal with players. But other than, having a player's handbook handy, that's all you need. And you don't technically need that. They have all the monsters stat blocks already there in the adventure for you. If there are any maps, they have them in there. You can run it entirely what's called the theater of the mind, where you don't use the maps or anything. You just kind of describe, okay, you're in an area. There's 2 kind of groups of ruins that are semi-close to each other, about the 30 feet away, and there's the 3 bad guys about 20 feet away, but pointing weapons at you. And then they just tell you what they want to do, and you go with it. It's a ton of fun. Again, but because they are 1 hour adventures, if you just want to get a taste of what it's like, they're brilliant. and they're a great way to kill a few hours. If you find out you really like them, you can get other first adventures if you want to just try the different seasons. You can buy the rest of the adventures in that season and run them, or run other adventures. There's so many things you can do. But these adventures specifically are designed to be run directly from the PDF. So they're very easy to run. They don't require a bunch of books or anything. And again, they're only $3 or $4. So if you don't want to invest in a $50 player's handbook, or getting the trifecta of the player's handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and the monster manual, which right now, if you're getting them on Amazon, is going to run you around like 90-ish. Retail price, they're each $50 books. So that's a huge investment. This is the $3, and you get a perfect intro to D&D. So I hope you guys find this interesting. I hope some of you go and actually pick up these adventures. Even if you don't run them, they're great references to be able to see how D&D adventures are written and how they're intended to be played. And like I said, all you need is generally one Dungeon Master and the 3 players. That's it. But beyond that, you can have up to 7 for these adventures. They limit you to between the 3 or 7, and that's generally a good idea for D&D in general. The sweet spot is about 4 or 5 players and 1 DM. But yeah, give these a shot. Let me know in the comments if you do try them, if any of them interest you. The next few videos are going to be me singling out specific adventures, giving tips on how to run those specific adventures, and other things like that, in case you want to try something a little bit more in depth than the 5 mini adventures. So that's all for me today, and I will see you guys in the next time. All right, bye bye.